Yes, I have a motion to appoint Daniel Mator as Township Manager until January 21st in accordance with the terms and conditions of the employment agreement as presented with the omissions of Section 4, Paragraph L regarding termination and severance pay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wow. Well, Daniel Mator got a new contract, but it wasn't for 2 years. Not yet, anyway. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Wow, if you missed it last night, or if you went home early because the executive session went on for 90 minutes in the middle of the meeting, I have the highlights for you. And what you just saw was a new contract for our township manager. It just wasn't the contract that he was expecting. We're going to go over all of that over the next few minutes. And I'm just going to give you the highlights of everything today. If you want to watch the whole video, I do have that. It won't have any of my commentary in it, and that I'm sure will make some of you happy. I'll put it right over my shoulder. I'll put it right up here, and you can click on that link, watch it, and then you don't have to listen to me at all. A lot of the most important stuff and the most interesting stuff is what happened without us. And so I'm going to kind of take some context clues that we saw throughout the night and put those together and put together at least my best guess of what may have been happening behind the scenes and how we got to the end game that we got to. So if you didn't know what was going on last night, we have a proposed new contract for our township manager, and it is a 2-year contract. It is a little higher salary than before. There are some benefits in there, and it's not what you would traditionally find in a township manager's contract. So that raised a lot of eyebrows, and it kicked off some public comment that I think is going to be worth going over. So let's take a look at some of that.
And then in regard to number 7, the township manager agreement, it has termination clauses with severance packages of 6 and 12 months of salary. Those in the room who manage businesses can certainly attest that this is a highly unusual severance package and differs wildly from our neighboring townships' packages.
Many, if not all of you, either in the most recent election or your previous election, campaigned on strong fiscal management. As such, I suggest the Board of Supervisors table the vote on this contract so it can be further reviewed and adjusted to mirror contracts of other municipal managers of similar sized municipalities.
The other thing that doesn't seem to make any sense, it says in the event the employee is terminated by the 3 months of any supervisor being sworn into office, it becomes 12 months salary and benefits. That's a sweet deal. I'd take that.
Okay, a lot of commenters are disappointed or concerned that there are these gigantic payouts if we cut them loose early. So let's start with this. Let's look in the contract. And let's start by looking at number 4 here, just to set a baseline, okay? Number 4 here, this is L4. It basically says that if Mr. Mator is unhappy, he decides to voluntarily terminate his services with West Deer Township, he gives 30 days notice, and all is well, okay? So we're gonna go up into L1. Now, if the supervisors terminate him early, they have to pay 6 months of aggregate salary or pay out the rest of his contract up to 6 months. But if he is terminated, okay, get this, within 3 months of any supervisor being sworn into office, the termination and severance pay shall be increased to 12 months of salary. So let that sink in. Did you catch that? A new supervisor gets hired. Let's say somebody leaves early and a new one is brought on. I don't know why that's the trigger for this, but if we let our township manager go within 3 months of a new supervisor being onboarded into our township, we have to pay him 12 months, not 6 months. I don't get it. I just don't understand it. I'm not 100% sure why one has to do with the other. So here's what I didn't hear anybody talking about last night. There's a minimum raise clause in this contract as well. And it goes like this. And I'm going to read out of my notes here because they're a little easier than to read all of the contract language. So in 2026, right now, he would get paid $150,000 base salary. In 2027, we don't exactly know what his raise would be because he would receive a minimum increase in pay equal to the percentage increase provided to the next highest paid township employee who is not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. So that's confusing. Let's say, I'm presuming, I could be wrong, but I'm presuming that the next highest paid employee is an employee that we just hired immediately after we deliberated about Daniel Mator last night, and that is Amanda Lucas, who is our brand new assistant township manager. Now, in the meeting last night, they didn't go over salary or anything like that, but in the job posting, we were told that there is a probationary salary of $100,000 for that position. All right. So that is very likely to be the next highest paid employee over there that is non-union. We also know that Joseph Shook was getting paid in the neighborhood of $111,000. Let's call that a good base salary for the assistant township manager is neighborhood of 110. So let's say the next highest paid employee, Amanda, does a great job. And in 2027, we take her off of the probation period and we give her a salary of $111,000. So in this hypothetical, that's an 11% increase. That means that is the minimum raise that we have to give Daniel Mator. What we end up paying him in 2027, according to this proposed contract, has very little to do with his own performance, and it has a lot to do with the assistant township manager's performance. So if she's a rock star, then Daniel Mator just has more money flowing in. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because when I came up and made my own public comment, I didn't really talk about the contract that much. But I did talk about his performance.
I don't have a personal issue with Mr. Mator, but my concern is performance in one particular area and is fundamental to public trust, and that's government transparency and compliance with the law. It's not political, it's a straightforward example of a township manager obstinately taking the same position, losing on the same issue, and then repeating the same all over again, requiring citizens like us to appeal to Harrisburg again just to get lawful business started. So here's ultimately what I'm asking of this new board. Don't rush a contract renewal tonight without clear documented status updates of his overall performance. If you need time to evaluate whether this pattern is acceptable risk for the township, I'm talking about financial risk, I'm talking about legal risk, I'm talking about trust risk. Take that time.
And with public comment over, there was some other business to take care of. And the next item was to vote on the contract for John Mator. And they immediately went into executive session. Let me see if I can get a good still shot here of all the players. So in the middle, you have our new chairperson, John Hollenbaugh. So John, I think, is a proponent of Dan Mator. He was kind of on Team Bev Jordan, and on that team certainly included Dan Mator, Gavin. We had, at times, Smullen and Fleming. So I think we have a pretty safe yes vote here in John Hollenbaugh. And as we just said, I think Fleming as well. So I think those are two pretty strong yes votes. On the other side of things, you have Josh Wigand and Bill Payne. Josh is going to be a no, in my opinion. He was the one opposing vote in 2024 for Daniel Mator's last contract. I have no reason to think that's not going to be the case again here. And Bill Payne, I think he's also going to be a no on Dan Mator as well. And that leaves one other person. That is Vince McCurry. I think he's actually the most interesting person in all of this, to me, because I find him really fair. I interviewed him a few months ago, and he, to be honest, he left a very good impression with me. And I believe that he's a person that wants to do the right thing for the community. I don't know if he was impressed in any way with anything that I had to say. And I don't know what he thought of the contract. But I do know that before he walked into the room this evening, he read the hell out of that contract. He knows exactly what it says. He would have anticipated where the pain points were going to be for the public because he wanted to be prepared. He's literally been doing this job as supervisor for 1 hour. He might be asking himself, how can I possibly be qualified to determine if this is the right choice or not? So when I look at Vince McCurry, more so than anyone else up there, I see some inner conflict, and I totally understand it. I totally understand it. I would probably feel the same thing. So if Vince McCurry is the most interesting person in the room, I think Gavin Robb is the most important person in the room. Gavin is smart. We've talked about that before. He knows how the politics affect him personally. And he has a lot of skin in the game. So we know, in 2025, certainly, they used Gavin Robb a lot. And you use him a lot, he gets paid a lot. And Dan Mator used Gavin for almost every right to know request, in my opinion. Certainly, just about everything that I ever did. And every time that happened, we paid him. And that adds up. So, Mator is very good to Gavin. And in my opinion, Gavin wants to keep Mator in place because that's good for Gavin. And he wants Hollenbaugh, by the way, to be the new Bev. So he's trying to rebuild this team with the new players. So Gavin is going to defend this contract. For all I know, he wrote this contract. And he's certainly going to defend the contract itself and the language in it. And his influence will be all over that room when they're talking about the items in the contract. The other new item that maybe they weren't anticipating talking about is Mator's performance. I'm sure Gavin's all over that too. That came from Steve. He runs a YouTube channel. He's a troublemaker. He's painting the picture that he wants you to see. So in that regard, Gavin's a pretty big influence in that room. So Gavin has 2 yeses. He's got 2 nos. And he's got this wild card who's been there for an hour. And all Gavin has to do is convince Vince that this is the right decision for the community, for West Deer, for the board. Well, I don't think it ended up being as easy as he thought because they were in there a long time, which means there was a lot to talk about. And while I would love to say that everybody was thrilled with my little presentation about Dan Mator being a poor performer, in all likelihood, this contract was really eating people up. And I think it may have gotten to Vince McCurry, or he may have had those concerns going in without any influence from the public at all. But he heard his constituents, which was all of us. He's the at-large supervisor, telling him, we have concerns with this contract, and we have concerns with his performance. And we would love for you to go in there and try to get to the bottom of what this is all about. So here's what I think ended up happening. I think that the yeses were yeses and the nos were nos. I think Vince abstained. I think he said, I am not in a position to be able to make this decision fairly. I do not have enough data. So I'm going to abstain from this vote. Again, I'm just speculating here. Believe me, I have no insider information. But that's probably what I hope I would have done. So when they finally came to the conclusion that they couldn't reach a conclusion, they had to come up with something, because at the end of the night, Dan Mator's current contract is up. So what do? They write a temporary contract that is valid until the day of the next supervisors meeting. They leave the pay as it is. They get rid of the weird severance stuff, and they go out and they call Daniel Mator back in. And we got to see that. We saw Gavin come out and say, hey, Dan, we need you to come back in here. We need you for something, right? So I don't know if there was back and forth or not, but that's the agreement they clearly reached, because the next thing you know, everybody's coming out and getting ready to make the announcement to the township.
All right, folks, we are reconvened. The board met in executive session to discuss matters of personnel.
We're going to move forward with number 7 on the township manager and employment agreement. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I have a motion to appoint Daniel Mator as township manager until January 21st in accordance with the terms and conditions of the employment agreement as presented, with the omissions of section 4, paragraph L regarding termination and severance pay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
And if you blinked, you missed it. So what do I think is going to end up happening in the business meeting? I think it's more likely than not that they hire Dan Mator. I would probably push for a 1-year contract instead of a 2-year contract. I think his golden parachute turns into a silver parachute, something just not quite as crazy. Tying your merit increase to somebody else's accomplishments, I think, sends a very bad message to the township, to the people, to the citizens. And tying the amount of back pay you give somebody to when the last time a supervisor was brought on board just doesn't make any sense at all. So I think we're going to see a new proposal. It'll be a different contract, and it'll be really interesting to see what that is. So we have a lot more about this meeting to talk about, and we'll do that as the days go by, as we count down to the first business meeting of the year. So Happy New Year, everybody. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. If you like what you see here, it's free for you and good for my channel. Hit the like button. That does help. And it helps not only my channel, it helps get this word out to your neighbors. So that's what we're trying to do here. I I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you next time. See ya.
Well,